Good morning, and welcome to the First Parish in Framingham. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We welcome you here in the meeting house, or on Zoom, or wherever and whenever you may be watching this service in the future. My name's David Ortmeyer. I am a member of the Board of Assessors. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am your worship associate this morning. Please be sure to read the announcements in the order of service, and immediately following worship, you are invited to join us for coffee hour in Scott Hall just across the courtyard. Now please take a moment to turn your phones or other devices to their quietest settings. While beeps and buzzes can be distracting, we welcome your human noises, especially the sound of your singing, so please join in. Since 1701, people have gathered as this community to rest or recharge, to be challenged or armed, and those affirmed. And those people are like you. You belong here, maybe only for the next hour, but we hope for longer, and we are happy to have you with us. I now invite you to take a deepening breath in and out, and continue to take a few more breaths. And to begin to release whatever you need to let go of, to be more fully present to yourself, to one another, and the sacred in this time and place. The flaming chalice was first used by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. And as we light this chalice, we invoke the love that called people to put their lives at risk to save others. May we be vessels of life-saving welcome. Please rise in body or spirit to sing our first hymn, Lift Every Voice and Sing. It's number 149. And then please remain standing to sing our song of affirmation and remain standing for our spoken affirmation. Rejoice this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom,
to serve all life with compassion,
to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Strauss. I use she, her pronouns. I would love to say together with you all, good morning and welcome to church. And today I have a story called Sometimes People March. Oops. Sorry. Technical difficulties. That's what I needed. And it's by Tessa Allen. Sometimes ants march. And there's a picture of a whole lot of ants marching over a slice of watermelon and taking a little tiny piece. Sometimes bands march. Sometimes people march. Marching is something people do together when they want to resist injustice or when they notice a need for change. People march for many reasons. People march for things they care about. And I'm going to describe a few pictures, including this one. This is a picture of 4 adults and 1 child holding the strings of a large balloon shaped like the earth with a wrapping around its head and a little hot thermometer and a sad face. And people they love. People march for the health of their bodies and their communities and the world. And we have a group of people who have a sign that says, "Protect water." People march for the freedom to love and live and learn. Sometimes people carry signs to share their stories of resistance. There's a sign that says, "Votes for Women." Another one that says, "Black Lives Matter." Someone carrying a trans flag. "Refugees welcome here" in the shape of the United States. March for our lives. We are the 99%. People resist in many ways. Sometimes people resist with their voices. And it's a person yelling, "Show me what democracy looks like," and a bunch of other people saying, "This is what democracy looks like." They might resist with words, and there's a typewriter, and it says, sorry, I need a new prescription. The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. Ida B. Wells. Or with songs, and there is a picture of Pete Seeger in a very, very small boat. Or art. People resist with meetings. They resist by standing up, or sitting down, or taking a knee. And that is a picture of Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. It isn't always easy. Feet get tired, arms get tired, hearts and hopes get tired. Sometimes problems seem too big or complex. But we do not march alone. Ants are stronger together. And now the whole group of ants is lifting the entire piece of watermelon. Bands are louder together. People are more powerful together. Sometimes from feelings of fear or anger or injustice comes the hope for change. Sometimes great change starts small with a brave question. Maybe your question. A question that calls people together. And together we find the courage to march. And now we are going to march to religious education to the tune of number 118, This Little Light of Mine, and we will sing 2 verses.
I'm the Reverend Aaron Stockel Wiseman. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am your senior minister. This is the time in our service that we set aside for sharing of the things which weigh deepest on our hearts, because we know that joy shared is joy expanded, and a sorrow shared can feel as though someone is lifting a burden. You can submit your joys or sorrows either online, you send an email most Thursdays when I remember, or you can write them down in this book right here that is normally at the back of our sanctuary. We are introducing a new song to hold our joys and sorrows this day. We'll be singing this throughout the spring. This new song is called There Is a Love. The melody line is printed in the order of service. We do this, we sing after our joys and sorrows so that your joys and sorrows can be held in song, but also so that you might have a song on your heart when we are joyful or sorrowful. We will sing this at the end of our sharing today. And if you notice in the melody line, there are actually 2 different verses. There is a love holding me, and there is a love holding us, and we'll sing both of those. I begin with the sorrows of our gathered community. Maria Rodriguez shares this, that she is concerned that our friend and cat sitter, Barbara, is in the ICU with COVID. We share this as well. Myrna Howe fell and was seriously injured. She is being moved to another rehab on Cape Cod. Please see the Faithful Dispatch for information to send her a card. And I think wait until it comes out on Thursday, because I think the one that we have right now, the address is wrong. And these are the joys of our shared and gathered community. Kevin Stern shares this, that it was a joy to spend time this past week with my sister and nieces. We light one final candle for all of the joys and the sorrows that remain too great to share, but still weigh deeply on our hearts. Let us now sing, There Is a Love. There is a love, oh is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. Rest in this love. Now invite you to return your attention to your breath in and your breath out. To feel the chair that is supporting you, or whatever is supporting you. Maybe the strength and compassion of this community, or that love that is holding all that we love. Spirit of life and love, some call you God, some see no need for a name. That love calls us each beloved. We give thanks for this gathered community, for our own individual joys of time shared with dear family, for the power of song, for the sheltering walls. We know it didn't have to be this way. We know that there is suffering in our world. The ongoing COVID pandemic continues to injure our bodies and our spirits. Let us not forget our frontline workers. May they find rest and compassion and peace as they make impossible decisions. We send that compassion to all who are injured and ill, all who mourn and live or live with addictions. We know that our world is beautiful and also broken. Let us each work for peace in all of the war-torn parts of our world, whether half the world away or in our own neighborhoods. Let us work to bend the arc of the universe towards justice. And we know because we are human that sometimes we don't do all that is necessary. We put up barriers between ourselves and others and the world around us. We do this because we are human. And because we are breathing, there is still a chance to move back into right relationship. That is the good news. I say these words and do all things for love's sake. May it be so, and amen. Now let us sit in the quiet of this house so that we might rest or recharge or pray silently the prayers of our own hearts. Though our silence ends now, may we be reminded that we can always return to that quiet whenever we need it most.
This morning's offering will go to the UU Mass Action as our monthly Share the Plate offering recipient. Since 2006, UU Mass Action has been organizing and mobilizing the 20,000 Unitarian Universalists and the 142 congregations in Massachusetts to confront oppression. Our pathways to justice are selected by identifying the priorities in which our congregations are engaged, engaging in our coalition partners' shared priorities, assessing legislative momentum, and identifying who are the most vulnerable people in our Commonwealth. Now the offering will be taken.
Choir, that was beautiful. Thank you. Before we get too much further, I want to share a little bit about what I know of the context and the background of the songs and the readings that we have heard today. We'll start out with Lift Every Voice and Sing. If you have ever sung this hymn, known as the Black National Anthem of African American people, you will know of its power. The NAACP writes, Lift Every Voice and Sing was a hymn written as a poem by NAACP leader James Weldon Johnson in 1900. His brother, John Rosamond Johnson, composed the music for the lyrics. A choir of 500 school children at the segregated Stanton School, where James Weldon Johnson was principal, first performed the song in public in Jacksonville, Florida, to celebrate President Lincoln's birthday. At the end of the 20th century, Johnson's lyrics eloquently captured the solemn yet hopeful appeal for the liberty of Black Americans. Set against the religious invocation of God and the promise of freedom, the song was later adapted by the NAACP and was used prominently as a rallying cry during the civil rights movement. This little light of mine, Operation Respect, shares this information about the origins of this song. It is a gospel song that came to be an anthem of the civil rights movement, often mistakenly believed to have been sung on plantations during slavery. It was originally written by Henry Dixon Lose around 1920 as a children's song. During the civil rights movement, Zelphia Horton adapted the song and taught it to Pete Seeger. The song is famously tied to civil rights leader Fannie Lou Hamer, while being detained by police on her way back from attempting to register to vote. With other members of her community, she began to sing this song. And on the song that the choir sang during the offering, Howard Thurman wrote this: "The most profound of all the hymns on nature, themes, and in my opinion, the most intellectual of all the spirituals is Deep River." He writes that on the surface of it, there seems to be nothing more here than simple otherworldliness. The analogy is fruitful with great meaning. Life is a deep river. To think of life as being like a river is an apt and almost universal analogy. The analogy is complete in the first place because the river has a very simple beginning, and it gathers in depth and breadth and turbulence as it moves across the broad expanse of the continent till it gives itself up to the sea, whose far off call all waters hear. It is the nature of the river to flow. It is the nature of life, he writes, to be in process, always moving, always in flux. Our next reading is Commitment Card. The author was once known. Every volunteer was required to sign a commitment card that read, "I hereby pledge myself, my person and my body to the nonviolent movement. Therefore, I will keep the following 10 commandments. 1, meditate daily on the teachings and life of Jesus. 2, remember always that the nonviolent movement in Birmingham seeks justice and reconciliation, not victory. 3, walk and talk in the manner of love, for God is love. Sacrifice all personal wishes in order that all men might be free. Pray daily to be used by God in order that all men might be free. Observe with both friend and foe the ordinary rules of courtesy. Seek to perform service for others and for the world. Refrain from the violence of fist, tongue, and heart. Strive to be in good spiritual and bodily health. Follow the directions of the movement and of the captain on a demonstration. I sign this pledge having seriously considered what I do and with the determination and will to persevere." There's a space for a name, address, phone number, nearest relative, and that nearest relative's address. Besides demonstrations, I could also help the movement by circle the proper items, run errands, drive my car, fix food for volunteers, clerical work, make phone calls, answer phones, mimeograph, type, print signs, and distribute leaflets. That is probably one of the stranger readings to share on Martin Luther King Sunday. A colleague of mine shared this on Facebook years ago. It was the commitment card for those who were pledging to be nonviolent in Birmingham, Alabama, as part of the Project C campaign to promote civil rights in the spring of 1963. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference ended up training 3,000 volunteers in nonviolent demonstration techniques. The range of commitments is moving, but also the coda to it is moving too. Besides demonstrations, I could mimeograph. I could fix food. I could drive. This reminds me that the movement needed not just demonstrators, but also people to drive and fix food, people to get people where they needed to go. That's an important lesson right there. Next, we will sing hymn 30. The context of this is that the author, Bernice Johnson Regan, was a song leader in Albany and took the old song that went, "Over my head, I see trouble in the air." She changed it to "Freedom in the air." She was expelled from Albany State College for her participation in the Student Nonviolent Organizing Committee's Freedom Singers. And in 1995, the National Association for Music Education declared this song to be one song that every American should know. Of singing, Regan wrote, "After a song, the differences between us were not so great. Somehow making a song required an expression of that which was common to all of us. This music was like an instrument, like holding a tool in your hand." Let us rise in body or spirit to sing hymn 30, "Over My Head." So next we will hear David read "Don't Sleep Through the Revolution." This comes from the Ware Lecture, which is the annual lecture that is delivered at General Assembly, Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. It was delivered in 1966. This is right after the passage of the Voting Rights Act in July of 1965, and it is about when most textbooks stop talking about the civil rights movement, as if everything was solved right then and there. September of 1966, the Civil Rights Act, or the Fair Housing Act, was stopped by filibuster in the Senate. So that conversation, I assume, was gearing up, in May of that year. Earlier in this speech, Martin Luther King notes his connection to the Reverend James Reeb, a Unitarian Universalist minister who had been killed in Selma, as well as his time attending Arlington Street Church in Boston while King was a graduate student at Boston University. I love his description that you will hear of the interconnected web, saying that all life is interrelated and somehow we are all tied together.
I would like to suggest some of the things that the church must continually do in order to remain awake through this revolution. We are challenged to instill within the people of our congregations a world perspective. The world in which we live is geographically one. Now, more and more, we are challenged to make it one in terms of brotherhood. Modern man, though his scientific genius has been able to dwarf distance and place time into chains, and our jet planes have compressed into minutes distances that once took weeks and even months, through our scientific genius, we have made of this world a neighborhood. And now, through our moral and ethical commitment, we must make it a brotherhood. We must live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. This is a fact of life. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. All I'm saying is this, that all life is interrelated, and somehow we are all tied together. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of all reality. John Donne caught it years ago and placed it in graphic terms. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. He goes on to say, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. Therefore, send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. This realization is absolutely necessary if we are to remain awake in this revolution.
What is radical about our next hymn is its insistence that the world isn't done with us, that all we have is in fact not right here. My colleague Peter Boulata says it best, these songs give theological voice to those who endured slavery, making meaning and spurring resistance as they are sung. In terms of the wide scope of hymnody in the mainline churches, this is not a widely sung hymn. Indeed, it appears in only one other hymnal. It appears that this version comes to us also from Bernice Johnson Regan, who learned it from Bessie Jones. Another colleague, Dan Harper, reminds us that there is no pretense that we will all have plenty of joy and happiness right here and now. Joy, happiness, and heaven are all theological ideals, the end towards which we direct our lives with no guarantee that we will achieve that end now or in the immediate future. We can only hope to find them somewhere. Let us rise in body or spirit to sing hymn 95, There is More Love Somewhere. Our final reading today comes from Martin Luther King Jr.'s last book, Where Do We Go From Here? In 1967, Dr. King isolated himself from the demands of the civil rights movement. He rented a house in Jamaica with no telephone and labored over his final manuscript. The catalog page for this book explains that in it he lays out his thoughts, plans, and dreams for America's future, including the need for better jobs, higher wages, decent housing, and quality education. With the universal message of hope that continued to resonate, King demanded an end to global suffering, asserting that humankind, for the first time, has the resources and the technology necessary to eradicate poverty.
The stability of the large world house, which is ours, will involve a revolution of values to accompany the scientific and freedom revolutions engulfing the earth. We most rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society, when machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people. The giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are capable of being conquered. A civilization can flounder as readily in the face of moral and spiritual bankruptcy as it can through financial bankruptcy. Genuine revolutions of values means in the final analysis that our loyalties must become ecumenical rather than sectional. Every nation must now develop an overriding loyalty to mankind as a whole in order to preserve the best in their individual societies. Love is the key that unlocks the door, which leads to ultimate reality. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked and dejected with a lost opportunity. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage. The time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residues of numerous civilization are written the pathetic words, too late. There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our records of vigilance or our neglect. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. We still have a choice today, nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. This may well be mankind's last chance to choose between chaos and community. It is important for the liberal to see that the oppressed person who agitates for his rights is not the creator of tension. He merely brings out the hidden tension that is already alive. Last summer, when we had our open housing marches in Chicago, many of our white liberal friends cried out in horror and dismay. You're creating hatred and hostility in the white communities in which you are marching. You are only developing a white backlash. I never could understand this logic. They failed to realize that the hatred and the hostilities were already late or subconsciously present. Our march merely brought them to the surface. How strange it would be to condemn a physician who, through persistent work and the ingenuity of his medical skills, discovered cancer in a patient. Would anyone be so ignorant as to say he caused the cancer? Through the skills and discipline of direct action, we reveal that there is a dangerous cancer of hatred and racism in our society. We did not cause the cancer, we merely exposed it. Only through this kind of exposure will the cancer ever be cured. The committed white liberal must see the need for powerful antidotes to combat the disease of racism. The white liberal must escalate his support for the struggle for racial justice rather than de-escalate it. The need for commitment is greater today than ever.
So today we have heard the words and the deeds of the prophetic man, Martin Luther King Jr., and we have sung some songs. Some of these spirituals, as we sung them, come more from the civil rights movement, of course, but they do have roots in the songs that enslaved people sang. And even as I myself put this service together, I wonder if this is the right way to observe the day. What might other ways of doing this look like? Martin Luther King Jr. Day is one of those secular holidays that has become a tradition, a religious tradition for Unitarian Universalists. I think it's the same of Earth Day and Mother's Day and Father's Day, all which are fine observances and call us to focus in a certain way. It's just curious. Why do I feel like I want to change this? Because sometimes our observances of this day create a sanitized version of Martin Luther King Jr. While I have tried to bring you some of the lesser-known speeches and writings of his, it doesn't always highlight the sad truth of how our nation's government treated him. He was vilified during his time. A friend of mine told me that according to polls done around the time of his death, King was 20 percentage points less popular than a certain former president of our country is right now. Can you believe that fact? 20 percentage points less popular. By naming later in his work the triple threat of racism, materialism, and militarism, he was not popular because he believed that changes need to be made, and pointing out those very things in our nation did not make him popular. Also, I think, too, in the highlighting of just one man's works and deeds, we might also be ignoring so many other people who worked for liberation. For the work of liberation is a team effort, and it is also not a spectator sport. Maybe next year we'll lift up different people who worked for liberation of all peoples, lifting up the work and words of other activists who toiled away in other ways. But we aren't there yet. This year is this year, and next year will be next year. And who knows? In January of 2025, we could be feeling different. Nonetheless, this is one message that I want you to take away from today. It is this. It is vital that we remember that everyone we have elevated to be a modern-day prophet was also human. We lift them up and look up to them at their most prophetic, the times when they were showing courage, showing their strength, times when I am sure they were weary as well. These black and white pictures we often see of these figures work to convince us that they lived long, long ago, when that's not the case. When I think about the modern day prophets, I also remember that Martin Luther King Jr. loved Star Trek. Once at a fundraiser, Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, she was at this fundraiser and she was told, hey, there's a big fan who wants to talk to you. I think in one interview I heard of her, she expected it to be some Trekker or Trekkie, which she met at every convention. And I can only imagine her surprise when she entered the room or turned the corner and saw Martin Luther King as that big fan. King explained that Star Trek was the only show that he allowed his kids to stay up late to watch. When Nichelle Nichols told him that she was planning to leave the show, King told her, "You can't." Though African Americans were making great strides towards equality, she represented one of the only examples of that equality on television. Uhura was intelligent, beautiful, and commanding, and he pointed out a role that wasn't specifically the role for a black woman. Her presence on that spaceship showed the world that a Black woman could do all of those things. I also love the fact that King watched the World Series once with Howard Thurman. I love the pictures of King swimming, of him laughing, of him recharging. I love that image of him renting a house in Jamaica to write a book. I love knowing that Coretta Scott King was a classically trained singer. I love the fact that Howard Thurman learned clarinet later in life, that apparently he had an extensive collection, and this is true, of penguin figurines. And he loved to paint emperor penguins especially, because of their species' mutual sharing of responsibility, both male and female in the birth and nurturing process. His wife once said of Howard, "It gets him away from his problems. I think he appreciates compliments on his painting a great deal more than he does compliments on his books or sermons, more than he admits." Think about James Luther Adams, the Unitarian theologian who studied the Confessing Church movement in Nazi Germany, which was a movement that was resisting the rise of the Nazis. I smile when I know that he loved the movie Kung Fu with David Carradine, or that he loved soap operas. But apparently there was a bakery in Belmont, Massachusetts that made bread that he really loved. All of this serves to humanize the people that we put on a pedestal. It reminds me that there had to be joy for the prophetic words and deeds to flow. It reminds me too that joy is prophetic, that joy is a form of resistance. A friend of mine who is a rabbi reminded me that the ancient rabbis taught that prophecy can only be accessed through joy, that there has to be joy in our lives if we are to look through the signs of the times and speak the truth in love. My friends gathered here, may we remember to always seek joy as we work to bend the arc of the universe towards justice. May it be so, and amen. So our final hymn that we'll sing is number 1007. The background behind this hymn is that it was written by Rose Sanders, who is now known as Faya Rose Torre. Rose is a prominent civil rights activist and attorney in Selma, Alabama. Was actually the first Black female judge in Alabama, and she writes these songs in her spare time. I encourage you to look up her biography. It is truly inspiring. Let us rise in body or spirit to sing. So before you go off and have your coffee, Just two quick reminders. You'll see the information on the back of this order of service. There's a spiritual practices retreat that I'll be hosting next Saturday. Please do sign up if that is something who's interested. We do have the 5 people to run it, so it will happen, but we have room for more. And also, this did not get in the order of service or the bulletin. After our service in this space, if you missed the rituals of writing touchstone words down on rocks or dissolving paper to let go of the things that you need to let go of, in the meeting house after we're done, I'll have stations set up so you can write on rocks words that you want to hold on to, or write on dissolving paper words that you wish to release. So as we leave this friendly place, let us take the light of love out into the world and use it to brighten our pathways. And when we need to rest or recharge, be challenged or affirmed, may that light guide us safely back. May we hold the light always, and light hold us always. Go in peace.